What is up, beautiful people? Kirby Hasseman here to deliver you just a little bit more marketing joy. And today I'm going to talk about five books that I think you should read if you want to up your game in personal development. Now, if you're enjoying these videos or these podcasts, please feel free to subscribe wherever you're getting them. And if you would, take the time, give it a little thumbs up. Obviously, rate the podcast if you would. Give me some 5 stars. It'll help us spread the word and hopefully help some other people as well. So let's dive in today and talk about 5 books that I recommend if you want to start developing your personal development journey. Now, I'm a person who believes in pursuing growth. I believe that if we are not pursuing growth, then we are probably deteriorating. And I think that we talk about, as a society, trying to be happy all the time. And I think that chasing happiness can be pretty elusive, right? But I think when you pursue purpose, when you pursue growth, happiness becomes the byproduct often of that. You putting things out there into the world that provide service. And one of the ways to do that is to continually develop personally. So that personal development is a journey that I believe all of us should go on. I've heard that quote that says that some men die at 25, but they wait till 75 to be buried. If we are not continually looking for ways to develop and grow, I think that becomes one of us. And I don't want that to be you, and I certainly don't want that to be me. And so today I want to talk a little bit about some books that I recommend that have helped me, have spoken to me and my heart, that I hope that will provide you some value as well. So these are 5 of those books. This is obviously not a comprehensive list of personal development books, but these are ones that have really spoken to me. So first up, let's jump into the OG, the one that that really had the biggest impact on my life earlier. It's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Now, this is an older book. It's written by Stephen Covey way back when, but it's one that, I read the book, and I always say that, a lot of times, especially early on in my learning journey, checking the box and reading the book was, okay, I did it, right? But I think in many of those books, they will say, hey, okay, now it's important to do this exercise. So set the book down and write this down. Set the book down and make a list of the things that you would buy if you had all the money in the world. And to be honest with you, I never did that. I never did those exercises. I just kept reading. And the first thing I would want to say is with 7 Habits, there's a lot of those exercises that guide you to sort of an internal dialogue, being introspective, that will really help you get the most out of books like that. And so what was funny is I read the book 7 Habits, and then years later, the Longaberger Company where I was working actually paid for me to go through a 2 or 3 day educational session where we went over 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And it was interesting in the sense that I was like, oh, I already know all this material, but I didn't, because I hadn't really gone through the exercises. Well, when you go through a session like that, you sit, you discuss the ideas, you watch videos, but then the thing that they do is they make you go through the exercises. So I sat down and I wrote down, what would I buy if I had all the money in the world? Who would I spend time with? What would I be doing? And I really went through those exercises. And when I did that, it was life-changing. The quote from the book that I always remember, it says that many people spend their entire lives climbing the corporate ladder, and when they get to the top, they realize the ladder was leaning against the wrong wall. And that was what I realized as an epiphany. When I went through that course, that session, within 2 weeks, I actually turned in my resignation from the Longaberger Company. The Longaberger Company was a great company. I really enjoyed working there, but I realized in that moment, by going through those exercises, that it was just not where I needed to be. And so 7 Habits of Highly Effective People was truly a life-changing book and a life-changing workshop. So that's number 1. Number 2, The 5-Second Rule by Mel Robbins. I think that sometimes the most profound things can often be the most simple. And simple is not the same as easy. And the 5-second rule essentially says that when you set goals for yourself, and you write them down, you put them in a place where you can see them on a regular basis, that often you will get nudges to move toward that goal. But the brain is a funny thing. It will try and talk you out of it, right? You've got 5 seconds to take action on that nudge, or your brain will talk you out of it. And I found this to be true. And so Mel Robbins gives you a bunch of tools, but one in particular, which is count backwards, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then take action toward that thing. I will tell you, when I heard this, I thought, that's too simple. It's too easy. It's a very, very powerful concept. The book is great. And I will say the audiobook, I think, is even better because it literally sounds like Mel is just talking to you. So the 5-second rule, definitely a highly recommend on my list. Next up, The Power of One More. Ed Milet, I talk about him a lot in my content because he inspires me. I love him as an interviewer. I love him as a speaker. And The Power of One More is a really, really great book. The concept is pretty simple. Again, that if you are doing whatever you want to do in life, by simply doing one more each time, it has a compounding effect. So making that one more sales call and reading that one more page, doing that one more rep in the exercise. When you do those things over and over, those things compound. And the reality of it is most people aren't doing them at all to begin with. So when you do that, then you do one more. It does a couple things. Number one, it really does give you reps that will pay off in the long term. And then to Ed's comment, one of the things he talks about is one of the ways to build self-confidence is to keep promises to yourself. And when you are doing that one more, when you are doing that one more workout, you're doing that one more thing that leads you toward where you want to go, it helps actually build up your self-confidence as well. So far we've got 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, the 5-second rule, and the power of one more. Next up, I just love this one. It's Soundtracks by Jon Acuff. Now, I love pretty much everything Jon Acuff writes. I talk a lot about him, and he inspires me. But Soundtracks is probably my favorite because the concept around this book is, look, we all have that voice in our head, those things that play on repeat in our brain. And it's our voice that we hear most of the time. When we talk about those negative voices in our life, often the most negative voice is our own. And those are soundtracks that are playing over and over. And Jon Acuff calls those soundtracks that don't serve us broken soundtracks, and how we can hijack those and start redirecting those and reworking those so that we can play something over and over again that actually serves us and moves us towards where we want to go. One of my favorite ones, I literally use this all the time, and I heard him talk about this. Jon Acuff do this in the book, but then also just in short videos that he's done. When I don't feel like working out, when I don't feel like writing, when I don't feel like doing something, his soundtrack is Some Beats None. Some beats none every time, right? So my goal is just, hey, I'm just going to do some. And what I found is when I just do some, usually by getting started, I'll go ahead and do what I needed to do to begin with. But that first step sometimes is really hard. And that soundtrack that Jon Acuff gave me, Some Beats None, helps me to get started and do the thing that I know that I need to do. So Soundtracks is one of my favorites. And then the final book I want to recommend today is one that, it's funny, I don't always think of this as a personal development book, and the author is Seth Godin, who I always think of as sort of a marketing genius. But the book, The Dip, is the one that I find that I recommend so often to people who are starting any new project. And the simple concept, and by the way, The Dip is a really easy, it's like 80 pages, it's a really easy read. Seth's a great writer. But I find myself quoting that book all the time. And it's like anytime you start a new project, you get really excited, and your knowledge and your learning and your excitement just keeps going up and up and up until you get to a certain level and it starts to plateau. And as you start, you keep going on a project, it actually starts to go down. The speed at which you're learning, your level of excitement, the progress that you're making toward whatever it is. And that is what is known as the dip. And that's when most people quit. And Godin talks about the idea that the ones who just keep going and then even lean in on the idea of the dip are the ones that come out on the other side. And those are the thought leaders that we recognize and we respect. So not that you should never quit, but his message is to be intentional about, if you are going to quit, make sure it isn't because you're in the dip, because that's not the right time to quit. That's the time that everybody wants to quit. So like I said, these are 5 books that really have been powerful for me. They've really helped me in my personal development journey. Several of these I've read several times. So it's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, The 5-Second Rule, The Power of One More, Soundtracks, and The Dip. So I hope this has been valuable for you. If it has, please feel free to subscribe, and please feel free to share this with anybody that you think would get some value out of it, and I will keep them coming. You have a great day, everybody.